Hello, and welcome to this video on IGCSE economics, where we're going to be covering chapter 13, which talks about the market economic system. Right, so now in IGCSE economics, we learn about three economic systems. So we learn about three economic systems. One of them is called the market. So what we're going to learn today, so market economy. And then we're going to talk about something called a planned economy. So planned economy. And later on, we're going to talk about mixed economy. So we have those three types of economy that we study in economics. So very important for you to not to forget these three types of economies that we study in economics. Right, now let's jump right into it. So a market economic system is also called free enterprise economy, also called a free market economy. So you find these names being interchanged, but they mean the same thing. And in this type of economy or economic system, resources are allocated through the interaction of demand and supply, and there is very minimal government intervention. In fact, in the true sense of the word, in a market economic system, there is no government intervention. So in a market economic system, there is minimum government intervention. Now, you may ask yourself, what is a market? And basically, a market is an arrangement that brings together buyers and sellers. So it's an arrangement. One thing I want you to know is that don't confuse a market with a place. It's not a place, it's just an arrangement where buyers and sellers can meet and do trade. So one of the characteristics of a market is, let's say for example, is that there is a medium of exchange. So there is a medium of exchange, so that means you're exchanging with either money. You can also have something like there are buyers and sellers. So I'm not going to write that because it's very easy to remember. So there are buyers and sellers, for example. We'll write that there. Another characteristic or feature of a market maybe is something like, in a market there are rules. So there are rules or regulation for entry and exit. So this is important to remember. And then something else that can be found in a market is that there must be a product or products that are being sold. All right, and of course this product will be sold at a price. Now let's think about the role of price. And we know that in a market economy, because you've said demand and supply are going to play a very important instrument in allocation of resources, price will be playing the role of signaling producers. So if the price, for example, increases, more is going to be produced, so more will be produced. And if price goes down, it means there's less demand for that product and therefore less will be produced. Another role of price is rationing, and this means because of price, only those who can afford to pay the price will get the product. And also price plays the role of incentivizing, and this basically means that because producers know that they can make profit if they produce a certain good, then it's an incentive for them to produce the goods for which they can make the most profit. So that is the incentive. Now let's have an overview of the market economic system. So it's important to know that consumers are sovereign. So sovereign here means that they determine what is produced by signaling their preferences through the prices they are willing to pay. So consumers are sovereign here, and they signal their preferences through the prices they are willing to pay, and producers are going to produce these things. The factors of production, so land and capital, will be privately owned. So they'll be owned by households in a market economy, and the private sector firms aim to maximize profit. Later on, we're going to find out what private sector means. So the private sector firms aim to maximize profits, while households seek low prices and high quality, and resources move through a process called price mechanism, which is basically the interaction of demand and supply. So that is what is called price mechanism. So the interaction of demand and supply. All right, let's move forward. What are some of the advantages of a market economic system? So the first one is that a market economic system is very responsive to consumers. This means if there's a change in price, the producers are going to respond very quickly in a market economic system. Second advantage is that there's automatic resource allocation, and so resources change quickly and automatically based on price signals. Another one is that consumers and producers have choices, so they can choose consumers can choose what to buy and from whom, and producers can choose what to produce. Employees can also choose where to work, and employers can choose who to employ. So there's also efficiency and low prices. Because of the competition among the producers, we can get lower prices. And also goods are of high quality because of competition, and people have the incentive to work hard. Okay, I'm just going to pause there for a moment. If you're writing, you can write. Right, these are the disadvantages. First, the disadvantage is that there's market failure. Market failure. So the market can fail. The market can fail. And these are some of the ways through which the market can fail. So the first one is market economy, they neglect externalities. And these are external costs. This is a cost to third parties. We're going to study this in detail. And externalities are basically external costs or external benefits to third parties. And then we have a second disadvantage, which is abuse of monopoly power. And we don't want a monopoly to be in the hands of the private sector or to be in the market economy. We also have under provision of public goods. So public goods are unlikely to be produced in a market economy because public goods are very likely to be produced in the government. And the reason why public goods are underproduced or never produced in a market economy is because of the free rider problem. This is because anybody who did not pay for them can use them. And if you remember the definition of public goods, they are non-excludable and non-rival. So these ones will not be produced in a market economy. We also have information failure, where producers may have more information and consumers less information. That's called asymmetric information, when one of the parties involved in a transaction has more information. We also have inequality and poverty, where big businesses can make a lot of money and some people can be in poverty. That is going to result in inequality. And we have mobility of resources, and we have the last one is short-termism, which basically means some organizations can come into the business, make their profit quickly, and get out of that business, and they don't stay in the long term. Right, so those are some of the disadvantages of a market economy. I'm just going to pause there for a moment. If you're writing, you can write. Okay, let's move on to assessing efficiency. So a market economy is very likely to achieve allocative efficiency, and this will occur when resources are allocated to produce goods that consumers want in the right quantity. And what that basically means is that on this demand curve, we're going to be producing at this point, which in a previous video we called the equilibrium. Now, by any chance, if the goods are being produced at this particular point here, which is below the quantity required by consumers, this one will be called underproduction. So this is underproduction. So it basically means the economy is producing less than the economy requires. Okay, so that would be called underproduction if they produce at that point. And so you also know that if they produce at this point, that one is going to be called overproduction. So we don't want an economy to have a surplus or to have a deficit, a shortage. So we want to be producing at the equilibrium there. That's why we achieve allocative efficiency. So basically producing what consumers want. Right, let's move on. Productive efficiency is achieved when farms produce at the lowest possible average cost per unit. And this one, productive efficiency, means also that there is no wastage of resources. So no wastage of resources. This one can be shown on a graph in two ways. So it can be shown on a production possibility curve, And if this is our production possibility curve, we want to be producing on the curve. So this one is productive efficiency. If by any chance they are producing here at this point, this is inefficient. So this would be inefficient. Okay, so they want to be producing on that curve. For a producing firm, we want to be producing on the lowest possible point on the average cost curve. So on the lowest possible point. So this is the quantity you want to be producing, and this is how we can achieve productive efficiency. So on the lowest possible point on average cost curve. So on the lowest point on the average cost curve, that's where we achieve productive efficiency. So we have those two types of efficiency. We have allocative, which means produce what consumers want, and we have productive, which means producing with the lowest possible cost and avoiding any wastage. And this can be shown on a production possibility curve. If the economy is producing on the PPC and produce, or if a firm is producing on the lowest possible point, the lowest point on the AC curve. All right. Then we have dynamic efficiency. This is an efficiency that is achieved over time through continuous investment and innovation. Think about this as research and development, where it takes time to research, develop, and launch a product. So dynamic efficiency takes place over time. Usually, productive efficiency, allocative efficiency, and productive efficiency, usually these two are referred to as static efficiency. So they can be measured in time, and these ones have to be measured over time. So these two can be measured in time, and this one is measured over time. So this one is measured in time, at a particular moment in time. All right, let's move forward. Let's look at the public and private sector. So the public sector is controlled by the government. So it may include government-owned and run services, including state-owned enterprises. And one of the aims of the government is to improve the welfare of the people. The private sector, on the other hand, is businesses and organizations owned by shareholders or households. And these are mainly found in the market economic system. Let's look at an example of a question that Cambridge can bring for you, or a question that you can see in your exams. Why might a government encourage a competitive market? So why might a government encourage a competitive market? Competitive market create high prices. As you just seen in the video, they create low prices. Competitive markets generate large advertising costs. So this will not be a reason to encourage. Competitive markets prevent innovation. No. They actually encourage innovation, as we've seen. Competitive markets provide greater consumer choice. This would be the correct answer for this question here, D. So that's an example of a question that can be that can come from this chapter. And with that, I'm gonna urge you to subscribe to my channel and also share my video with your classmates. See you in my next video.